It's not looking good for the future of EVs, as Ford and GM have announced that they will be shutting down their EV production. This is a surprising turn of events, and it's left the general public in mixed feelings. The public, who are already fed up with the EV concept, are happy about it, while the politicians advocating for the usage of EVs are left confused and afraid. Why did Ford and GM shut down their EV production? Why is the government pushing EVs towards the middle class? On February 14, 2023, the European government approved the law for zero carbon dioxide emissions for new cars and vans in 2035. Following in their footsteps, the Biden administration imposed on automakers such as Ford and GM to prioritize the production and sale of electric cars. Also, they set a goal for 7 out of 10 of all new car sales to be electric by 2032, not putting public opinion into consideration. Given the current challenges of the charging infrastructure and EVs' incessant accidents, this not only instilled fears in customers, but also enraged the automakers. This goal is especially challenging given that only 7% of cars sold today are EVs, yet Biden aims to increase this figure to 70% within just 8 years. That's not all. The government has warned of imposing a hefty $14 billion penalty on car manufacturers if the goal isn't achieved by then. This rule has put automakers including Ford and GM in a precarious situation, as they are concerned that the rapid transition to the EV era could result in significant financial losses. This is because switching from gas-powered vehicles to electric ones is no easy task. It requires a substantial overhaul of their entire systems, causing considerable unease among them about the impact on their profitability. Now, while the Biden administration is laser-focused on the future of EVs, automakers like Ford and GM are facing a difficult balancing act. On the one hand, they need to invest heavily in R&D and infrastructure to keep up with the government's EV targets. But on the other hand, they need to keep making money by selling gas-powered vehicles. And the United Auto Workers Union is also weighing in, concerned about the potential for job loss as automakers shift from gas to electric. Ford and GM have already laid off thousands of employees in the past, so the union is understandably concerned about the future of its members' jobs. However, after everything, the automakers decided to follow the government's preference by producing EVs. But the story has been anything but profitable. Starting with Ford, their pickup truck was the best-selling vehicle in the US for 2 decades. But Ford CEO Jim Farley surprisingly halted its production in favor of EVs. Now, Ford is facing a significant problem with its EVs, as the company has already reported a loss of $4 billion. This has caused panic among everyone, from the CEO to the workers. CEO Jim Farley is facing the difficult decision of how to keep the company afloat, and the employees who are being laid off are concerned about their future. And the worst of all, these brand new cars are just sitting there in the lot, gathering dust, instead of hitting the roads and generating revenue for the dealers. So what a ladder, right? Ford's dealerships, nearly 4,000 of them, are essentially staging a rebellion against the company's plan to focus on electric vehicles. The dealers are waving red flags and telling the Biden administration that they're not on board with this shift. It's almost like the dealers can see writing on the wall, predicting that Ford's EV strategy will not be successful. They're worried that the company is making a huge mistake by betting on a technology that isn't yet widely adopted by consumers. Despite offering big discounts and government incentives, they're still struggling to sell the vehicles. Take, for instance, the Ford F-150 Lightning, touted as the major next innovation. Dealers who were initially excited about selling the Ford F-150 Lightning had their hopes dashed by the disappointing sales numbers. The situation has gotten so dire that some dealers are offering deals that would put Black Friday sales to shame. Also, the dealers have had to deal with the 2-tier system set up by Ford, which is called Model E Certified and Model E Certified Elite. To become Model E Certified, the dealers had to pay $500,000, and becoming an Elite required more than that, $1.2 million. The dealers weren't satisfied with the plan. It's simply too expensive for them. Also, they see the system as Ford's attempt at interfering with the traditional franchise system, where dealers are given a certain level of autonomy and control over their businesses. After facing pushback from dealers, Ford revised its plans for its EV rollout. The company reduced the amount of money that dealers would need to spend and made the process of getting certified less demanding. For example, dealers no longer need to install 5 Level 2 chargers, but only 2. And instead of having to install 5 EV chargers to become Model E certified Elite, dealers now only need to install 3. Ford has also extended the deadline for having these chargers in place and relaxed the requirement for Level 3 fast chargers. But despite that, the update wasn't successful, as it didn't call the dealers back. Back to the customers. There are a number of reasons why electric vehicles have been slow to catch on. And it's not just about the initial purchase price. For one, many people worry about the hassle of charging an EV at home. In cold weather, EV batteries can lose up to 40% of their charge, making them impractical for daily use. Another big concern is the reliability of the charging stations themselves, with nearly half of them either overcrowded or not working properly. But perhaps the biggest concern of all is the risk of EV fires. Lithium-ion batteries are prone to overheating, and merely scraping the car's underbody can spark explosions, posing a serious safety risk. And to make matters worse, Ford had to recall 35,000 Mustang Mach-E electric vehicles due to a problem with their high-voltage battery main contactors overheating, resulting in a complete loss of driving power. This isn't just a slight hiccup, it's a significant issue. This recall follows a previous one in June 2022, where Ford attempted to address the problem with a software update, which ultimately proved insufficient. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration intervened and launched an investigation in August. So Ford has had to go to even greater lengths to fix the issue. This time, the company is replacing the entire high-voltage battery junction box in extended-range vehicles, which is a major undertaking. But hold on, there's more. Through tracking, Ford has identified 17 incidents where the high-voltage contactors overheated, leading to vehicle instability and a potential fire outbreak. Also, Ford is currently tracking over 1.8 million Explorer vehicles that have a potentially dangerous issue with their windshields. It seems that the A-pillar trim clips were not properly assembled during production, and this could cause the trim piece to detach from the vehicle and become a flying hazard while the car is in motion. This defect could cause the driver to lose control and crash. Ford's recent actions are indicative of a broader pattern. They've been at the forefront with the highest number of recalls last year, and they're maintaining this pace. Earlier this year, they had to recall nearly 113,000 F-150 trucks. It seems that there is a defect in the brake shift interlock that could cause the truck to roll away on its own. Compared to General Motors, Ford's case is still better. General Motors might be facing closure, and their CEO is to blame. Mary Barra has made a bold move that could have far-reaching consequences for the company. She has signed a $19 billion deal with LG to acquire essential battery components, such as nickel, to establish what they're calling America's largest cathode factory in Tennessee. They aim to have this factory operational by 2026, which sounds incredibly ambitious. However, here's where it gets interesting. While Barra is investing heavily in the EV dream, it appears that GM's EVs aren't flying off the shelves. Their sales plummeted by 24% in just one quarter, which is a far cry from their supposed competitor's sales, Tesla. But their issue with labor strikes is far more troubling. GM's earnings have taken a serious hit in recent months, with the company losing up to $800 million courtesy of the labor strike. It was dire to the extent that, at some point, they were shelling out $200 million per week. As a result of the poor sales of its EVs, GM has paused production of some of their EVs, including the Equinox, Silverado, and GMC Sierra EVs, and even the models that have been selling, like the Chevy Bolt and EUV, are on their way out. And GM's self-driving car project, Cruise, has been a money pit, costing the company a staggering $2.7 billion last year. Thus, it's clear that GM is struggling to find its footing in the EV market. But despite the challenges facing GM's EV business, Mary Barra is determined to press on, refusing to lower prices on their electric vehicles. It's almost like she's ignoring the reality of the situation and hoping that her plan will eventually pay off. Meanwhile, there seems to be some new hope for EV makers as the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, responsible for safeguarding our air quality, has introduced new regulations aimed at reducing vehicle emissions. New vehicles are required to be 56% cleaner than current standards by 2032. While this isn't a direct mandate for automakers to make electric vehicles, it could effectively have the same effect. In order to meet these standards, most new vehicles would need to be EVs. You'd expect the automakers to be fully committed to the ambitious EPA's new emissions standards, right? Well, think again. GM and Ford have argued that the targets are too ambitious and unrealistic and would require a major investment in EV production that they're not prepared for. Even Nissan and Honda are hesitant to fully embrace the EPA's timeline. Looking at the arguments of the automakers, it seems to make some sense. The major catalyst for the high cost of EVs can be seen in the supply chain. Materials used in EV production, like lithium, are exported from China. Now, with China's imposition of export bans, that could create a shortage of the material. This could drive up the cost of lithium-ion batteries, making it more difficult to transition away from gas-powered vehicles, and the EVs more expensive. The European Union's proposed ban on gas cars by 2035 is a bold move, and the US EPA's requirement is also a great plan nature-wise, but both could have unintended consequences if the EV supply chain is not stabilized. Without a reliable supply of batteries, the EV market could collapse, setting back progress on reducing carbon emissions. So, what's your take? Do you think politicians are the major advocates of EVs? And do you agree with the automakers' argument that EVs aren't feasible yet? Let's know your thoughts in the comments section.